You're watching Singapore Tonight, our top stories this evening. Singapore President Halimah Yacob has addressed the first session of the 14th Parliament. She has assured Singaporeans that jobs will remain a top priority for the next few years. And as Singapore pursues economic growth to create opportunities during the pandemic, its social safety net and social mobility must be strengthened. On the Singapore identity, Madam Halimah has urged Singaporeans to have confidence in their rights as citizens. She says the government will address concerns over jobs taken away by foreigners, recognising the anxiety among mid-career workers. And for more on the President's address, we're joined by Associate Professor Eugene Tan from the School of Law at Singapore Management University. Thank you very much, Professor Tan, for joining us. So, what's your overall assessment on the immediate task highlighted by President Halimah? What does it tell you about the government's priorities in the coming weeks and months?
Glenda, I think the government, through the President's address, sought to reassure Singaporeans, that they have a clear-eyed view of the issues that lie ahead. And I think when you look at the major themes that were covered, whether they relate to the local-foreign divide, a fair and just society, social safety nets, they speak to the top-of-the-mind issues that Singaporeans are very concerned with. But they also point, to the sort of work that's cut out, for the 14th Parliament, which in many ways also reflect the sort of challenges that Singapore and Singaporeans are facing. So I think, when you look at the address, and we will learn more about it when the government releases the addendum to the President's address, and then there will be the subsequent debate as well as Prime Minister Lee's major speech. But I think what is clear is, the sense of urgency, that come with these issues. I think COVID-19 has cast that long shadow, bringing forth, all these issues to the fore, right? And so what we make of it will be very crucial. I think it's important that the issues have been identified, but what is really crucial now is whether Parliament will be able to chart, that clear direction, that clear path forward for Singapore and Singaporeans.
Part of that clear path forward, Professor Tan, is going to be handling the economy, taking it on a path of regrowth. What kind of leadership do you think that we need in order to bring Singapore forward economically? And what kind of role is the government going to play, keeping in mind the uncertainties and the multitude of uncontrollable factors that we're facing?
Yes, so here is really the challenge for Singapore's political leadership. And in fact, one could say leadership at different levels of society, whether you're talking about business, community, religious organizations. But if we talk about, the sort of qualities that are needed, then I think, certainly we need leaders to be courageous, right? To have that bold vision, that iron will, and to be able to look at policies afresh and be prepared to depart from policies that may have served us well in the past, but may be inadequate, for the present times and going ahead. And if you think about, being able to revamp these policies, then it speaks to the need for nimble leadership. This crisis will throw many curveballs. There are no easy answers. And so how, the government will be able to be nimble and adapt, to the changes will become very crucial. And so that speaks to, the ability, to adjust and to trim the sails accordingly, depending on the conditions. But what is also crucial, in my view, is that, the government must be able to lead with empathy. And this is a crisis in which, we are never going to get out of it unless, the people work together with the government. And so the government must be able to facilitate, that cooperative relationship where people can collaborate, the different sectors of society will work together. So I think, it really demands a lot of our leadership, and we all, will have to hope, and press, the government to be able, to do just that.
Well, speaking of leadership and cooperation, one significant change in this term is the designation of a leader of the opposition and the larger number of opposition MPs. What changes do you expect this will bring about, in terms of the issues debated in Parliament this time?
I don't expect, in terms of the issues to be significantly different. Right? I think there are these issues that have been fleshed out. I think these are the issues that the government is identifying, because they know that these are issues that Singapore are concerned with. In terms of the tone and approach of the parties, right? There are three parties. I don't think they're going to be vastly different from the 13th Parliament. But with the opposition now having more resources, through the leader of the opposition office, I think we hope to see, better scrutiny of government policies. We hope to see better engagement of the issues, because I think it is not just enough, to say what is not so good about a particular policy, but also to be able to suggest possible ways forward. And I think when you look at the outcome of the 2020 general election, I think it gives both the Workers' Party and the Progress Singapore Party confidence, that Singaporeans would want them, to press the government on key issues, to hold the government accountable. And certainly, it hasn't stopped the government. The government is prepared for that, but they're also expecting the opposition to do more, right? So they've indicated again in today's president address, I think it's the fourth time since the general election, that it's not enough for the opposition to just ask tough questions of government, but for them to be able to propose policies and have them scrutinized, by the ruling party in Parliament. And so we'll see this contestation about, what is the role of, a credible opposition at this stage of our development. But I think what is clear, as the president sought to underline, is the need for all parties, to work together for the common good. That doesn't take away the need for robust debate. In fact, that calls for even more robust debate. But I think it's important that parties in the end recognize, what is at stake and be able to strike that common ground.
Professor Tan, I want to get your take on something else that Madam Halimah said. She said that the key to Singapore's success, it lies in our sense of shared identity. So what will the government have to do, or perhaps even change, in order to further enhance what's already been built over the years, and perhaps to even prevent external forces from pulling us apart, because that is a concern?
That's an excellent point. And I think, that the speech didn't quite address that, but hopefully, in the addendum and in the major speech that Prime Minister Lee would make, we will learn more. And certainly, this idea of focusing on our shared identity is an attempt to focus on what is it that binds us together, our commonalities, right, rather than what separates or even divides us. But I think what is crucial is, that we are all waiting to understand, to see what can be done, is how are we going to go about doing so? And here, I think it is important for the government to be able to identify and explain, the sort of shared values, that are needed. We have a set of shared values from 1991 when Parliament then approved a set of shared values. And they have sort of receded into the background. But I think shared values are important because they form the primary basis of our shared identity, right? What is it that defines us? And ultimately, if you talk about the common purpose, right, which was something that was very strong in the president's address, again, right, the whole notion of shared values become important because the shared values will determine, right, how we go about achieving the common purpose. Because there are many ways to go about achieving the common purpose, but what is it that we should do and what is it that we should not do? So I think, this point about, the shared identity is something which hopefully, in the debate on the president's address, we will be clearer, on the path forward. And I think we need to focus on values, right? What is it that binds us together? What is it that will pull us together?
Professor Tan, thank you for your perspectives on that. Always a pleasure to speak to you. That was Associate Professor Eugene Tan there from the School of Law at the Singapore Management University.